Hey, what's up, Accelerators Organization? Ryan Payne here for my live mentoring session for the month of December, and hope everyone is well. And just a reminder, basically, I run a wealth management firm here out of New York City. I can talk to you anything about like financial planning, wealth management, along with anything that has to do with just business building in general. Start my business from scratch, and hey, it's the last one of the year. Hard to believe. We are almost through 2020, for better or for worse. And we'll get to the questions now, and we'll break it down for you. But I hope everyone's doing well, and it's been a real pleasure so far doing these mentoring sessions through this insane time. And it's hard to believe here we're almost over for the year, and maybe by next summer we'll be back to some sort of normalization. So who knows? Who knows? All right, so let's get to the questions today. The first one that comes in from Gabor Ras. I always pronounce your last name terribly, but Gabor writes in, how do I keep track of what everyone's doing on my growing team? And a little bit of a business description here. Not long ago, our company consisted of my parents and I plus a secretary. We now have three full-time and four part-time employees doing packaging and admin, 3 to 5 contractors working on marketing, and many more in content production. Some work in our office, others are remote. One of the employees works as a manager of the admins and reports to me while I directly manage everyone who works on marketing. I'm getting very stressed because I feel I'm losing track of what everyone should be doing. When I finally sit down to do my job, I'm worried about all these guys on payroll. I'm not sure whether they're getting things done. How do I make sure my employees are productive and getting the right work done without micromanaging them and constantly looking over their shoulders? Okay, this is a really good one, and I am not a micromanager, so I can definitely relate to this because as our team has grown, we started with like 2 people initially. It was like me and another dude. We had desks that we looked at each other all day, so it was easy to monitor your employees when it's one employee and you're looking at them literally all day, and you can tell if they're being productive or not. But as your team grows, and we're all going to experience this, it does get more complex. It absolutely gets more complex as you get more people. And I think the first thing you need to decide, and Gabor, in your situation, it sounds to me like you probably aren't a micromanager because you're not really happy about the fact that you have to manage all these people. So for some of us, we like managing people, and some of us actually like to be in more of the minutia of what people are doing, have them reporting to, which I think is fine. If you want to wear that manager hat, well, then you've got to put a system in place that basically says, like, okay, how do I make people accountable to me? Whether that's like regular reviews, if there's any sort of performance metrics that you can use. A lot of my employees are performance based. And I'll give you an example of that. Like my financial advisors, they actually, whatever clients they manage, they get a percentage of the fee that we charge the client. So the more clients they bring on and the more that they grow those clients, the business with those clients, the larger their pay becomes. So it's a big incentive there that's really more performance based as opposed to like salaried or hourly or something like that. Now, that doesn't work with my admin team because my admin team, they work, basically on a salary. And we have some independent contractors that work hourly, but we do have a bonus structure in place. So every quarter they do get a review. And during that quarterly review, well, basically they have the opportunity, if they did a great job, to get that quarterly bonus or not. So I'd say for almost everyone in our firm, there is some sort of performance component to their actual compensation. So that's just something to think about in terms of how you're designing basically the roles for the different people that are going to be working with you. Now, kind of come full circle here. So if you're someone who doesn't like to micromanage, and I'm just kind of assuming that you are, I'm one of those people, by the way. I hate managing other people. Like, I have no tolerance for it. If things don't get done right, it's just like I can't understand it, right? It's just like you're supposed to do the task, you're supposed to do it, and I don't want to look for the reasons why. I don't even want to get into it because it's just like my brain just like shuts down. And you might relate to this. You might feel the same way, like, yes, I hate it too. And just the thought of having to manage people actually makes me a little bit ill. And you might be like that. I know I'm like that. Even talking to you about this right now, I feel that way a little bit. So what you need to do is, in that case, is maybe someone on your team who's extremely reliable, then reports to you actually does like to manage people. Now, on my team, I have just that. I have an actual operations person. And I came to that same point in my business, or that inflection point where it just wasn't going smooth anymore, where I was trying to manage the admin team and everybody else and making sure they're getting things done. They weren't getting things done, and I would try to punish people if they didn't get things done. That didn't work. Incentives. You need somebody who actually is really passionate about that. So if you have someone on your team that actually likes to be in a management role, and going back to, I would tie performance into how they manage that team. So there is incentives in there, and that's exactly what I do with my operations manager. And they report to me, and we actually go over all the firm issues on, I would say it works out to maybe a monthly basis. I get a full report, what's going on, what issues do we have to resolve, and that's like a much bigger macro type picture way to do it, and adds a lot of leverage too, because it's not a lot of your time to get a briefing. And again, if you see the performance is there, things are running smoothly, you can compensate that operations person on that. Now, it doesn't have to be someone who's full-time operations, because depending on the size of your organization, maybe you can't afford that. Actually, in my organization, it's someone who wears two hats. This person actually is a financial advisor, and she's also the operations person. But she actually loves organizing stuff. Like, it was crazy. I was trying to literally monitor this team, and it was just like the Wild West. Nothing's running smoothly. Meanwhile, I had this colleague, this woman who was just like, she was passionate about like being organized. She probably is the most efficient person on earth. And I'm thinking to myself, here I have the most efficient person on earth. Like, why isn't this person managing my business as opposed to me? And it's, it's a different role too. So don't feel like you're relinquishing control either, by the way, because someone who's a great manager isn't not necessarily the person who should be driving the business per se, right? So they can be two different people. So don't feel like, well, if that person can manage the operations, well, then they'll just take the business from me. I really think they're two different roles and two different hats. A lot of times people that have great managerial skills are actually not very entrepreneurial and can't make bigger decisions about the business. Sometimes maybe they can, but I really do feel like certain people have a real passion for that operations and that management of other people. And it doesn't mean you're a people person or not a people person, but you just appreciate how to organize things. And I think you want to have someone, if it's not you, if you really want to grow your business and it's all about leveraging, right, getting to the next level, you want to have that component to your business. You want to have somebody in your business who does that. Hopefully that is helpful. You can always hit me up when this video is over in the comments box below, and I can chat with you there. But I do think that having an operations person, especially as you're growing, it sounds like you're really growing, is a very, very key thing that you want to have. Okay. Next question. Here we go. Okay, this one comes in from Mary Rantakaleo. I think I got that right. I always try, if nothing else. Mary writes in, how do I determine how to pay someone to do work for me? Business description and background of question. I have a therapy machine for horses and have now found a person to hire to use it. What would be the best salary alternative? Hourly paid or per treatment? One treatment is 30 minutes and a minimum charge is $50. The person knows a lot of people and is located in a training center for horses, and there's demand right away. I'm a veterinarian, currently working with small animals as a contractor, permanent resident sponsoring process ongoing. Okay. So, Mary, this kind of fits into the other question as well about compensation. I would do it, again, let's tie this to revenue. Let's make it real. I tie it to every single test that they actually do on these horses. Is a test, if I'm saying that correctly, or using the therapy machine, and maybe they get a percentage of that, that profit for each one that you actually do, or the revenue that comes in for each one. Then it's like they'll be incentivized to do more volume if they get paid by doing more. If they're ambitious, right? If they're not, they're just going to sit there. They're not going to really work it. The other thing I would do here, because I do like incentive pay, I just think that it just aligns everyone, and it's tied into the business. It's tied into the actual performance of the business. It just makes much more practical sense, and it gets people more invested into actually making the business grow, as opposed to just hired help. The other thing you're saying, this is sounds perfect, because this person's in some kind of influential center. Clearly, it sounds like there's more business they could potentially bring in for you. Why not give them a finder's fee? Or maybe they get a higher percent of the fee. It's business that they bring in for you, as opposed to business that you're actually driving into. to do these tests on the horses, essentially. So I think that's not a bad way to do it as well, is not only incentivize them in the sense that like they get a percent of each one that they actually do. Now, it depends on the volume too. I mean, there's just so much volume coming in that might not be practical. But again, I do like the performance component of that, but I also like some kind of finder's fee. Can be a really smart way for you to market or get someone to market on your behalf because they're incentivized to do that. The only thing I can really equate to that in my own business is one thing I do talk about a lot, probably comes up in almost every one of these Zoom chats or Facebook chats to be more accurate, is my radio show. Is I have people that actually answer calls on the weekend to bring leads into the firm. And they actually get, anytime they get a lead on the calendar for one of my financial advisors, they actually get a bonus for that. So there's an incentive there. So just even little incentives like that, whether it's $20, $30, I mean, $50 for this whole treatment, so maybe cheaper than that. But I think that always, the golden rule there is tie them in to be incentivized with what benefits you, benefits them, and vice versa. I just think that that's always just a better relationship to have with your colleagues, the people you're working with. Okay. So again, any questions on that, feel free to put them in the comment section of this Facebook Live. All right, we'll go to the next question here because we are on a roll. Okay, next question comes in from Alicia Francis. Her question is, what is your opinion on holding companies? Do you currently use them with your business, and what are the pros and cons? A little background on Alicia's business. We operate a service-based company in the winter. We do snow removal, so there's some risk of being sued if someone were to slip and fall. We have business insurance, of course, but we've told a holding company can also help protect our business. We're considering starting a holding company to hold our equipment, so any type of litigation with our operating company wouldn't affect our assets. I'm not a lawyer, but this does sound like it would make some sense, and I'll actually get one of my professionals in my mastermind, so to speak, one of the accountants or probably more accurately, one of the legal people I work with to give some advice on this. But it sounds like you want to have at least like an LLC held up, like some sort of limited liability corp at the very least, if that's what you mean by holding company. But it sounds like that would make some sense. I'll get you some more information on that, and I'll actually put it into this chat here. On the best way to structure something like that. But anything with equipment, anything where there is potential liability if something goes wrong above and beyond insurance, you probably do want to have things. I don't know if you need to go as far as a holding company. That's a good question, but I will find that out for you, and I will get you the right answer because I think that's pretty important to protect yourself in that situation. So I'll get back to you on that, and we'll move to the next question. All right, let's see here. Okay, next question comes from Adam Drake, my man. What are things I can do to promote my financial services firm? And a little background here. I lead a team of financial advisors, and I own the company, a registered investment advisory firm, just like myself. I see that you do interviews and are active on TV and other areas. How did you get into that, and what would I need to do to get started? And does it bring business in, or what are the benefits of doing that kind of networking? Do you also actively seek to bring on new brokers to your firm to increase AUM, that's assets under management? So, Adam, like my business, we measure our growth by people giving us more assets to manage, just to give you a little bit of context around that. Okay, so let's talk about the marketing component. And what Adam's referencing here is we do a lot of marketing at my firm. We do a lot of like TV, things like CNBC, Fox Business, Yahoo Finance. We talk about the markets. I have a radio show. I now have a podcast, and I'm launching a YouTube channel. So I do a lot of aggressive marketing. And I think you have to understand with marketing a couple things. First off, there's very, very direct marketing that's very, very effective, and you can link all your business back to it. Like, to me, the radio show is that kind of marketing. We just pay for airtime, by the way, which you could certainly do down in Florida because I believe that's where you're located, Adam. And that's great because it's like we do a radio show. We have a call to action. Call to actions are critical, saying like giving people the opportunity for a free financial review if they have a certain net worth. And we limit it. We say like if you call like within the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we do 10 a week, and that's basically what we do. So there's some scarcity there, and people can call in and ask for this review. To me, that's very good, direct, paid-for marketing, and I think those kind of strategies are awesome and you should have them in your business 100%. Now, that's one component: direct marketing, direct call to action, directly asking for people to give you their business. Okay, now the tricky thing is, for a smaller firm like yourself or me, I'm not Merrill Lynch, I'm not Bank of America, I'm not JP Morgan, I'm not Goldman Sachs, I'm not a household name. So people may be like, okay, I like this wealth management firm, I like what they have to say, but where's the credibility behind that? And this is where I would call your more intangible marketing comes in. So the fact that like I'm on television, it's a weird thing, but just psychologically people see that. And from their vantage point, it's like, oh, it's instant credibility. This guy knows what he's talking about. And other people in my firm as well. I don't want to give myself all the credit for that. Or on TV also. So a lot of it is just another layer for a lot of these prospective clients that are looking at our business or our wealth management firm and looking to potentially work with us. Now, to get some of that PR exposure and be on TV, you may want to hire a PR firm. That's what we did. We have a PR firm now. Frankly, we probably don't need them as much as we did initially because you can start to build those media contacts on your own. But to get an instant Rolodex to people that like book TV shows, that book like lots of different media outlets, whether it's magazines, I don't think anyone reads magazines anymore, but online outlets, whatever happens to be where you know your client base will be and getting some recognition, essentially you hire a PR firm for their Rolodex. And at some point, if you build those relationships on your own, I can tell you how to do that too, because eventually you want to kind of cut out the middleman or middle person if you can. Basically, then yes, you can start to get these relationships directly and they'll start booking you directly. And you can essentially do it on your own. And you don't have to pay the cost of a PR firm. So that to me it's kind of like, you've got this full strategy of different things that you're doing with people that are learning about your firm. You're creating credibility, you're creating comfort. And I think radio for us is a great way to do that, because someone who has their whole net worth, it's not a really, really quick decision to say, I'm going to give it to that person or that firm to manage. It's my whole net worth. There's a courting period that's typically involved with something that's like a big decision like that, especially if you have like a couple $1,000,000 or it's like a really, really serious decision. These are the people who are going to handle my finances for the rest of my life. It's not something that's made easily, right? It's not like deciding you're going to buy, I don't know, some supplements online or something that can be a quick, easy decision. It's not going to cost you a lot. So radio is really good for that because people are building a relationship with you. Like, people listen to our show week after week. Someone can say to me like, man, I listened to you guys for a year before I decided to have an actual review with you and see if you would be the people I'd like to work with to manage my money. So I think, it's a long game a lot when you're talking about any sort of like cold marketing when it comes to anything in wealth management. And a lot of businesses are like that. So depending on your business and depending on your business model, you have to really determine, like, is this a quick sale or is this a longer term sale rather? And in addition to that, like, I think anywhere else you can create credibility, because there's a lot of people that do what you and me do. It's not a real high hurdle to get into the financial services industry if we're to be real about it, right? So to create credibility and let you stand out, or make it so you stand out from everybody else, well, you've got to do things a little bit differently. Above and beyond just doing a great job for people, because ideally you get your referrals too, but this is just that cold marketing front that you're trying to build as well, additional business you can bring in. So I hope that's helpful for you, but I think that's the kind of things you want to think about. In our podcast, I'll just speak a second on that. That I want to replicate something like we've done with the radio, where again, people can start to listen, get to know you, and you have those call to actions in there where they can sign up for a review or some way that they can actually get in touch with you and take that relationship further from just listening to you, talking through the computer or the airwaves or whatever, okay? In regards to like bringing other advisors on or buying firms and buying their assets out so they become part of your firm, I think it's a great strategy. I don't actually do it because I think right now, specifically in our space, there's a lot of people doing it and you can't really buy a lot of businesses as cheaply as I would like. So, and the other thing is, like, you have to think about culture too, right? You bring someone on, are they going to fit your culture? That kind of stuff is really important to me specifically, and you have to decide with your own business, because there's lots of ways to to skin a cat, as they say. There's a lot of ways to grow your business. But, for me, I don't like the idea of having to bring someone else in who doesn't have our culture. Like, most of our advisors come from the ground up. A lot of times they were interns at our firm. A lot of times they were admin people and they moved into the role of like financial advisor. So everything we do is really homegrown. It's really part of our culture. It's really part of our brand. And it's really part of our philosophy when we invest. So like if you were going to sit down with me or another advisor at my firm, it's consistent along the way. Now that might not be as important to you depending on how you build your business. And I think in that case, bringing in other advisors is a very good way to do that. You just don't want to overpay for it. You got to make sure the economics work out for you in the long run. And right now, I think it's harder to do that with some of these firms commanding a lot of money. Like this would be a great time to sell your firm if you're about to sell, which unfortunately I'm not. I'm in growth mode, and I think you are too. So I'm not quite sure it's a buyer's market per se, but definitely a seller's market. So hopefully that helps you out. And again, just put some messages in the Facebook Live here chat, like we can talk about a little bit further. But good question. It's always nice to talk shop about our industry. Okay, next question coming in. Let's see. Is from Roland Bernath. And Roland writes in, how do I handle working in a family business I'm expected to take over and run someday? ? Okay. In our family company, my father is the owner, and I'm supposed to take over the company in a few years. I came to work for him a year ago. On the side, I have an import-export business revenue about $500 that I believe has potential. Recently, I'm realizing he has been very abusive emotionally all my life, but I'm just starting to realize this. I came home to work for/with him, but he looks at me as any other worker, not respecting my qualities of speaking several languages, having experience in management. He wants to make me do physical work and then tells me I'm lazy when I tell him this is not what I'm here for. Long term, I see a big potential in our family business, building up logistics, e-commerce, etc. But right now, we're just fighting because he is trying to micromanage everything, me as well. Many times I am feeling I'm wasting my time and potential here. My mental energy is draining, but I'm the oldest son in the family and was pretty much programmed that this is my responsibility to take over the company. I do feel emotionally attached, but I feel like I'm destined for bigger things in life. Okay, man, this is a tough situation. I think we can all kind of feel where you're coming from here. And, having someone who micromanages you and that doesn't really give you the ability to just do your thing, show where your talents lie. I am somewhat in a family business. It's not 100% the same kind of situation because my dad and I we started our business together from the ground up. So it was a partnership from the beginning. But I think maybe because it's still my dad, right? We're business partners, and in terms of business, it's kind of like we wear different hats, I think is probably the way to look at it. And this has worked well for us, knock on wood. You never want to jinx these things. So as business partners, we act as partners. He's not my father when we're talking about business decisions. We talk as business partners do, and actually more like friends. It's kind of a weird dynamic there. But, outside of the business, he's still my dad. I still have my responsibilities, I feel like, as a son, and he still has his fatherly way in that relationship dynamic, but they definitely are split, and that doesn't really bleed. Not to say it's impossible that it would, I don't think it's possible it can't bleed at all into that other relationship, but, I think a lot of it has to do with just how the relationship starts. Now, it sounds like you've come to work for him, and it sounds like you both have two very, very different expectations. Like you're here and he's here with where you both believe that you should be within this organization. So my thoughts there, because it's kind of like, I think the way you start these things kind of becomes the pattern. And they say this a lot about relationships. I'm not quite sure. I have to think about my own relationship this way. But like in a relationship, like in the beginning, if you're expected to do certain things with your spouse, or your girlfriend, and you do them that way, and then you want to flip the script later, sometimes it's hard to do that later, right? So basically, I think a little bit that is true here in this kind of relationship. So what I think my recommendation would be here is to do a reset with your dad. Just like time out. Like, hey, look, I want to be here. Like, I see a great opportunity in the future. You have a great business. I totally respect what you've done here. But, frankly, I've got other opportunities too. Like, lay it on the table. Like, I don't have to be here. I want to be here, but I think we have to come to some sort of agreement of what my role in the business is, what my freedom to do is, like the things I want to do versus my responsibility to the things that you wanted me to do. and agree on these are those things. Because later on, because right now he's not really crossing any boundaries, right? Like, you've never said that, like, if I come to work for you, I'm not doing manual labor or other things. So from his perspective, he's just telling you what he thinks. This is what I want you to do. You're in my business, because it hasn't been agreed upon up front. So maybe in my mind, that would be the best way to go, is just be like, hey, let's sit down. I've got to talk to you about like what my vision is, what I want to be doing, and if I even want to be here. And again, if you want me here too, put it on him too. Like, maybe if you want me here, that's great, but we've got to come to an agreement here of like, what makes sense for both of us. And then when you lay that out up front, later on, let's just say your dad's like, go move this over here. And you're like, whoa, you and I talked about this. Remember, my agreement is this, it's got to be kind of like, you got to treat it like a business, right? My agreement was, this is what my responsibilities were going to be. Let me get somebody else to do that. And just, you can fall back on what you agreed upon. So that's my suggestion there. Because I do think that's really, really important that those ground rules are laid out. And I'm just thinking about my own business and the way it works. And again, it's just like the expectations were up front. We're partners. We make our decisions collectively. No one steps on the other person's toes and makes decisions without just like at least saying, hey, like, I'm thinking about doing this. Is that cool with you? It never happens, right? Because it was always understood from the beginning. That's the way we run our business. We run it together. And I have to think about how many years now. We're 13 years in at this point. And again, I don't want to jinx it, but that is never changed, right? We've never gone away from that pattern because that's the way it was structured initially. So sounds like that reset would be a really important thing for you to do right now. And I would look at it that way, man. Look at it also from the perspective like, you have other options. Look at it from abundance, not scarcity. You sound like a smart guy. You have other options and things you can do. And don't make it the end-all be-all that you have to be in that business, because if your dad's going to continue to micromanage and you're going to be unhappy for this like dream of maybe down the line you're going to have an opportunity to really leverage that business and it's never going to happen, well, no one's going to be happy, right? So I think you got to go in there with the idea of like, this could work great, but if it doesn't, that's cool too. I'm going to use these skills I have somewhere else. So I think it's a healthy attitude, and vice versa. Let him feel that as well. Like, hey, look, if you feel like I'm not the right person to be in this business, cool. Just let me know. Let's make this so it's a mutually beneficial situation. Okay, that was maybe too much advice, but hopefully that's helpful. Again, always feel free to just put something down in the Facebook live chat, and we can talk about it a little bit more. In addition to that, I think we're actually out of questions. All right. Well, that was a good session. You want to try to like hit it hard, really just address all the issues for you guys. And I think we'll probably just move from there. Unless anyone has any other questions they want to put in the live chat over here, go for it. If not, we'll give you a second here. Anything that's on your mind? Okay, cool. All right. So I think we pretty much covered everything. Thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure doing this year. I've really enjoyed it. You guys asked me great questions, which has been great for me, because it makes me think about my business and things that I can structure better. So I really appreciate that. You've all had, I'd love to see you guys growing your businesses, excited about your businesses, and surviving COVID. Well done. So have a great, great holiday season. We'll hit it up next year, 2021. Let's come at it hard, get your rest, and let's just do it again. Let's do it even better next year. I feel like next year is going to be like the year, right? We're going to get out of this 2020 lockdown, and we're going to live life big, and we're going to do it to the fullest. So have a great holiday season. Until then, I'm out.